Okay, so we're going to do a video tutorial on question number 4 for this handout, more FRQ practice on aggregate demand and aggregate supply. So question number 4 says, assume the United States economy is in a recession. So the first thing we have to do is draw that graph. So for part A, we are just going to start with the basics. So I encourage you to just start with an X, short run aggregate supply, aggregate demand, price level, real GDP. Now, when they're in a recession, that means that there is no long run equilibrium. So that means I can go ahead with this X and I can draw the labels that they want here with my dotted lines, PL1 and Y1. And we also are instructed to put the long run aggregate supply, but they haven't given me a label to put there. It's pretty safe to say that you could do YF for full employment. And that is something that's always going to be correct if you're doing an inflationary gap or a recessionary gap. So now I'm showing that this economy is in a recession, starting from one of those 3 places to be. So now in part B, it says, now assume the Eurozone, a major trading partner of the United States, enters a recession. Oh boy, okay. So if they're in a recession, that means people are unemployed. It means businesses have closed. It means some businesses have closed. It means people are spending less money. And all of those things combined mean that European countries that use the Eurozone are certainly not going to be importing goods at the same rate from the United States as they were before. So unfortunately, the recession in the US is about to get worse. So what we're going to do is we're going to explain B1, and we will say that as a result of the recession, fewer imports from the United States. Well, they're exports from the United States. They're imports to those countries. So let me sort of change the way I'm wording it. I'm going to say exports because they're asking about exports in the question. So let's phrase it that way. Exports, oops, penmanship. Exports from the United States to the Eurozone will decrease due to less demand. Okay, now we have to graph that. So the less demand piece is the explanation. The beginning of this, I'm just identifying if they're going to increase or decrease. So I need you to make sure that you have that less demand. You know, you need to explain why there's fewer exports that are leaving the US and going to the Eurozone. So now we have to show that graphically, and it feels weird to make a situation worse or to up the degree on these graphs. We're kind of used to like solving the problem with policy on these, but we're just going to do what they're asking us to. And we know that there's a recession and we know it's going to get worse. So we're going to draw those arrows to the left. We're going to draw that new aggregate demand line. We're going to do dotted lines. And they didn't tell me a label there. So I'm just going to take it upon myself to put Y2 and PL2 because the first set that we had to do was number 1. And I'm looking at my graph and I'm noticing kind of how slanty all this is. And I apologize for that, but you get the picture. Hopefully you draw yours a little straighter. Then we are asked to comment on how this is going to impact unemployment in the United States. So unfortunately, the GDP is going to go from bad to worse, which means that unemployment is going to increase even more due to less demand for American manufactured goods. So unemployment in the USA will increase even further due to the loss or the loss in, let's say the decrease in, let's change this, the decrease in demand from from the Eurozone. Be nice if I could write. Okay. The demand, you know, the lack of demand will result in lower revenue. And therefore, businesses will lay off workers. I just want to be clear that, again, when we have these written examples, there's a variety of ways that you can articulate this concept. And again, you just don't want to make sure, you want to make sure that you don't just identify what's happening, but you explain how that is what you're identifying. So yes, saying that unemployment will increase is good, but we need to explain that businesses are going to earn less revenue. That means that you can't afford to have as many people on staff, and therefore there will be an increase in unemployment. So that's question number 4.